Comrades and friends, welcome to the program Global Weekly News, serial number 213. First item: in Colombia elections, the outgoing president lost a public address. On 21st June, presidential runoff elections took place in Colombia, a South American country. Ivan Cepeda, the left candidate, supported by the outgoing left president Gustavo Petro, lost the election by a margin of less than 3 lakhs. The far-right candidate Esprilla won. Since the election was a fraud, especially in counting of votes, Gustavo Petro said that he will not recognize Esprilla's victory. Esprilla has announced a commission to investigate the charges against Gustavo Petro. The intention is to imprison Petro. Esprilla will follow the policies in support of US and Israel. He will cause harm to the peace action started a few years back. Gustavo Petro, in his final public speech, pointed out the dangers to Colombia. Thousands of his supporters appeared in t-shirts. In Colombia, for a long time, political and social violence, deep social inequalities prevailed. The former guerrilla activist Carlos Pizarro gave up arms and contested presidential elections, but he was assassinated. Like him, thousands of left party activists were killed in Colombia. Nation means the people. Any attack on the nation is an attack on the people. Likewise, any attack on the people is an attack on the nation. Petro stated that the army and the police shall not use their arms against the people, weapons against the people, as per the constitution. Petro said about Esprilla likes not only bullfight but also the genocide by Israel, which killed more than 22,000 children. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces inquiry before the International Court of Justice for his crimes. In 4 years under Gustavo Petro's rule, unemployment, theft, hunger, violence all declined. Significant wage rises were given. There was progress in education and health sectors. Esprilla will be a slave of United States. Colombia will lose the republic status and become viceroy state. Petro asserted that a second independence war shall be launched. Second item, comrades: China opposes militarization by Japan or nuclearization by Japan. Japan's 3 non-nuclear principles of not possessing, not producing, and not permitting the introduction of nuclear weapons was formulated in 1967 and have been followed by all successive governments in Japan since then. Japan's experience of being the only country in the world to have faced the devastating effects of nuclear weapons in Hiroshima and Nagasaki has been critical in shaping its nuclear outlook and public opinion over the issue. However, the recent rise of the right wing in the country's politics and growing pressure from the United States in its new Cold War with China has led to calls for a national revival and attempts to remilitarize the country, including talks of Japan developing its own nuclear weapons. The Takachi government has pushed the US narrative of possible threats from China to the countries in the region and expressed its openness to the deployment of US nuclear weapons to the country, calling it extended deterrence. On 19th July, thousands of Japanese took to the streets in Tokyo to oppose the Takachi-led government's plans to revise the constitution and the three non-nuclear principles to allow the deployment of US nuclear arms in the country and push for its remilitarization. China claimed that nuclearization in Japan would be a violation of existing arrangements in the region and Japan's commitment to international law, and warned it may lead to instability in the region. 75% of Japanese people opposed the government's new moves of nuclearization. Item number 3. African country Tunisia. Tunisia Workers' Party General Secretary faces death threat. Hama Hamami, General Secretary of Workers' Party of Tunisia, received a death threat through a video by an individual called Aaron. The individual is a supporter of President. Tunisian authorities exhibit silence over this video. President of Tunisia, Kais Saied, came to power on 25th July 2021. Death threats are sent to the critics of the government, including opposition politicians, journalists, civil society activists, and trade unionists. Neither Hamami nor members of the Workers' Party won't stop their political activities. Item number 4. Hindi cine actor Naseeruddin Shah criticizes Narendra Modi. Karan Thapar, the anchor in news TV channels of India. Karan Thapar interviewed Naseeruddin Shah, the veteran Hindi cine actor, on students' protests. Brief report is presented here. Modi has been Prime Minister of India for 12 years. He has never spoken honestly about anything. He has not accepted responsibility for any of his blunders. He talks about the god Ganesha's head being the result of plastic surgery. He is applauded by doctors. He speaks lie upon lie upon lie. He never speaks to the press because he is scared. He will be asked about 2002 Gujarat happenings. He will be asked about his supposed 35 years of begging. He is meditating in the Himalayas. He is visiting Paris and New York and 20 other states of America before he was anybody, and yet he claims to have come from a poor family. His fake tears actually move the people. He has never cried for the Jawans who were blown up in Pulwama or the tourists who died in Palgam. Modi tells us to save petrol, drives around in a convoy of 10 sports utility vehicles. He tells us not to travel abroad, and the next night he leaves for a tour of 6 countries where he collects bogus medals. He said, "Don't buy gold, save money. It is not for him. He is divine." Naseeruddin Shah posted a video expressing his anguish and deep concern about the way protesting students have been treated in Delhi on 20th July. When students tried to march to Parliament to speak to their MPs and their government about exam leaks and about the education system, they were tear gassed and lathi charged on 20th July. The Hindustan Times says hundreds were injured, 600 policemen and 60 students were injured. Those who beaten up these students don't like policemen. They are not carrying name badges, not carrying ranks, not even in proper uniforms. So it is an army of gundas on our future. Prime Minister has not bothered to even ask the students what the issue is. And he says the youth must face challenges. What else are the youth doing? Prime Minister's hypocrisy is near comical. This is not the first time this has happened. He broke my heart and made my blood boil because, without provocation, young children got their heads split open, women being attacked and molested, obscene actions by the policemen with their lathis. These cannot be policemen. Policemen take an oath to protect and to defend our citizens, and this Delhi police, which cannot prevent daylight murders, rapes, abductions, swing into action in this way, along with the rapid action force to beat these students. The students are justified in what they are asking. Their anger is absolutely valid, and this government has to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to be able to pay any attention to them. The whole incident looked similar to Jallianwala Bagh, where the British soldiers were pointing guns at the citizens. The education minister should accept moral responsibility for the repeated exam leaks and resign. Even if he resigns, he will probably get a higher post in the government after. We are living in 1884, where there was surveillance on everybody. 2 minutes of hate has been transformed into 24 hours of hate. At his parliamentary party meeting, the Prime Minister reportedly said that ensuring leak-free examinations was a national responsibility. Being uneducated himself, he gives lessons in examinations. He has one of his types display of patently fake degree. He has never clarified his marital status. He has never clarified his parental position, about his children, about his life, nothing. The students who got injured on 20th July returned to Jantar Mandar the next day with bandages and injuries. They are showing enormous resilience and courage. I salute them. The future of our country is in their hands, and they are being fed nonsense in schools in the syllabi. They are being transported back to the 15th century. The protests have been going on for nearly 26 days, yet the government ignored the students. J.B. Natta, the central minister, visited the injured students at the hospital. Sastri resigned after a train crash in 1956. Madhav Roy Scindia did it after a plane crash in 1992. Nitish Kumar again resigned in 1989. Suresh Prabhu in 2017. The Prime Minister calls himself Pradhan Sevak, but both he and his ministers are behaving like arrogant autocrats, refusing to be accountable. The agitators may be booked under UPA, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, or Section 195 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Those who were arrested, some of those who were arrested 6 years back during the Anti-Citizenship Amendment Act agitations are still in jail. Students and youth will never forget the atrocities on them. Well, this is the interview given by the famous Hindi cine actor Nasruddin Shah to the anchor Karan Thapar. Comrades and friends, now that the news has come that Dharmendra Pradhan, our education minister, has resigned. So this is a great victory for students and youth. But still, the demands remain pending, like NEET shall be completely withdrawn. NEET exams should not be there. It should be banned. And if there are examinations, why this private national testing agency? Can't the government conduct the exams on its own? So there are many questions, and our education systems should be more scientific, more technology oriented, more employability and all that. So the demands remain, the agitations will go on. We have to salute the students and youth who made this victory possible. Now comrades, fifth item, Hands Up Asia Conference. The Hands Up Asia Conference featured panel discussions on debt, financial systems as undermining sovereignty, militarism, the fight against the rightist forces, and solidarity with Cuba. All along the Sri Lankan coast, you will see old ports. They are the ports of the various colonial powers, the Portuguese port, the Dutch port, and the English port. They are in ruins now. There are now proposals to restore them and beautify them for tourism purposes. But actually, they should be left just as they are, ruins, because that is the only true legacy that colonialism deserves in Sri Lanka. Dr. Ayilan Kadirgamar, senior lecturer in the University of Jaffna, Sri Lanka, made this striking statement at the Hands Up Asia Summit conference in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Dr. Kadirgamar was speaking at a session entitled Debt, Tariffs and the New Economic Seas, Sovereignty Under Assault. Experts from South Korea, Pakistan, China, India and Australia spoke in this session. The panelists reflected on how the economic policies of many countries in the global south were determined not on their land but in Washington, D.C. Debt and tariff regimes are two of the most common instruments used by the United States to drain wealth away from the countries of the global south. Between 1960 to now, the magnitude of the drain is estimated to be $152 lakh crore. 54 countries in the world are in extreme distress resulting from a debt crisis. South Korea, one of the 10 largest economies of the world and a long ally of the US, with over 28,000 US troops on its soil, is still not inoculated from the pressure of Trump's tariffs. Australia, former junior partner of British imperialism, is now becoming a junior partner to US imperialism. Today, Australia is used by the US to exert pressure on China. This has its own contradiction because China is also the largest export market for Australia. US blockade of China for semiconductor parts has failed. China has expanded its productive capacities and is in fact come up with artificial intelligence models that are extremely cheap, only about 1% of the cost of AI models developed by Silicon Valley of USA. The session on far-right authoritarianism and the domestic infrastructure of empire was attended by experts from Indonesia, Pakistan, Malaysia, ISAGOS of India and Philippines. The panelists spoke about the architecture of coercion and hegemony that the right wing is seeking to erect in their respective countries. The coup against movements seeking to assert sovereignty in countries such as Iran and Indonesia. The alliance between the clergy and the military in countries such as Pakistan and Malaysia. The rise of strongmen of the far right in countries such as Philippines and India, as well as the resistance to it from people's movements, particularly from students and youngsters. The final session was in solidarity with Cuba. The ambassador of Cuba to Sri Lanka was the main speaker. Others were from Pakistan, R. Prasant from Delhi, journalist from India and Sri Lanka. The ambassador spoke eloquently about the unimaginable challenges being faced by the Cuban people today as a result of the Trump administration tightening the blockade to an unprecedented levels. Cuban people derive strength from the fact that the vast majority of the countries and the overwhelming majority of the people stand firmly with Cuba. The other speakers paid glowing tributes to the Cuban Revolution and the internationalist spirit of the Cuban people. As Dr. Agilan Kadirgamar had so eloquently put it in the opening session, the people of the world look forward to US military bases also turning to ruins, just like the old colonial forts of Sri Lanka. Lastly, comrades, pension justice demand of Taiwan workers. The workers belonging to Taiwan made a action alliance. Taiwan's labor unions and civil social groups assembled before the parliament and demanded amendments to the workers' pension law to the effect of increasing employers' pension contribution to be increased gradually to 12% instead of 6% prevailing over the last 20 years. Taiwan's economy grows, corporates' profits increase, but the wages of majority workers remain below the national average. Millions of workers retire with less savings due to the absence of pension reforms. The Workers' Alliance has warned the government that pension reform shall not be merely election slogan. Thank you, comrades. Lal Salam. See you next week.